Welcome to another episode of the Minx Labrada Mysterious World podcast. Once again, I'll be your host, Minx Labrada. Join me as we check out our mysterious world, won't you? Okay, let's go ahead and talk about our sponsor. Technically not a sponsor, I know, but it is an appreciating asset. That's right, everyone's favorite and everyone's original cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. How you doing? You're going to want to get some of that. I've got it represented here as the Great Norse World Tree Yggdrasil. Please correct me if I'm saying that wrong. I don't understand it when they're sticking a bunch of consonants together and you're supposed to just make up vowels. I guess if the consonant have a bit of a vowel sound in it, then you use that. Not sure, but represented here is a flourishing and abundant tree of growth, which with you can share and pass down to generations and finally break free from the overlords, the evil central banking cabal. So get some. It's not too late. Buy the dip, baby. You telling me you don't have $68,000 laying around? Come on. Or you know what the ironic thing is? You could max out credit cards on them if you wanted and just buy Bitcoin. And then because Bitcoin's real money, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying I've heard that someone did that. I never did that. But is what I want to talk about tonight is self-defense against the dark arts. And I know that sounds a little funny, kind of like the old Hogwarts thing. And there was like several movies where, we got a new self-defense against the dark arts teacher. But it's what I mean by that is, having dreams when I was a kid. Some of them were pretty fantastical, and they were the kind of dreams where you wake up because you fall, you see like your astral self, like a clear version of yourself, fall into your regular body, into your bed, and then you wake up. Has anybody ever had that kind of dream? Yeah, it's a little strange, and it's a lot strange, and it happened a few times. It actually even happened to me as an adult a couple times, once in the Marines, and we'll get to that. But it seemed like wherever I was, where this thing was chasing me, was this dark hellscape. And after I researched it, it sounded like maybe the legend of the River Styx. Now, if you're going there in a dream as a child, I'm imagining there's some kind of past life connection to something like that. Maybe a war type of experience, or just a living kind of hell. Maybe a Roman mine or something. I don't know. Or maybe even an ethereal, not on the earth plane. Maybe it was an experience you had as a spirit in some capacity. Clearly not permanent. And then this one's a little bit more representational. Pure hell, really, and there's actually people going in there. Is what got me on this morning. I woke up and started laughing because I remembered a funny saying, and I've heard it a lot in sci-fi and like fantasy television and cartoons. And then in the game Diablo 2, I don't know if it's in the newer iterations of Diablo, but on the hell level, there was a monster called a Stygian hag. And I said that this morning and just started laughing because it was so ridiculous. And I was like, what is Stygia? Stygia is like from the region of Stygia that is famous for the River Styx, or from the region of the River Styx. And I'm wondering kind of how that kind of became to be a thing. Like there's Stygian hag is, you've heard people insult somebody with that in like kind of a Dungeons and Dragons type of TV show situation. or, you know, it's definitely a monster on Diablo 2 where the creature, it's not like really a woman. It vomits its brood, and then the brood come and attack you. And then you have to kill her, or she vomits more brood. So it was a pretty good idea for a monster, although I don't think the way it looked like a giant, kind of a cross between a kangaroo and a wiener dog, and with a lot of like teats. And it was just, it's only, about that big on the screen. So what are you going to do? I don't have all the details. But I thought it was interesting that when I started researching Stygia, essentially it sounded like quite literally the translation is the river of hate. And so I guess this would be the river on the way to hell. And I think it's an interesting metaphor that if you live in hate, that you're flowing to hell, baby. So I think that's really interesting. The Greeks, with all their philosophy and everything, were thoughtful enough to create this metaphor. Just another representation, and I included these archers with flaming arrows, kind of based on Wayne Barlow's book, or illustrated coffee table book, I guess you would call it, about what's it called? Hades. And it's just his kind of photorealistic rendering technique. And he uses I think he uses like a tiny brush with, so you're almost like painting pixels. So when you step back, it's like really impressive. Looks, well, photorealistic. But he also did Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials, which, the guy's super talented. And if you see his work, he did the concept art for Avatar, which, whatever you say about that movie, you can't say that the art direction and the concept or the art wasn't right. They got that. They nailed that. And then, so I started researching this idea of the hag, and it reminded me of a dream that I had as a kid where I was chased by something like this. And I'm wondering, did that happen to the ancient Greeks too? Does everybody get a dream where you get chased by the hag, where it ends, where I ran off a cliff and fell into my own body, and it ended up in, you see yourself falling into your body, which is, I guess, your astral body falls into your physical body. I'm not sure. And then you just wake up when it hits. I'm sure a lot of people out there have had those kind of dreams. Kind of seems to happen more when you're a kid. Haven't really noticed it happening to me in my adult life, but also as a young Marine, like I said, and we'll get to that. And then the other thing too is when you're doing a presentation about, a Stygian hag, and you're putting directions into Midjourney AI to tell it, what to create. Boy, you really had to tell it not, if you just put old lady and on the river Stygia, the hag is old, whatever I put. I forgot exactly what I put. It came out looking like someone's grandmother. And I was like, no. It has to be like, evil looking. And I think if something like this with this gray skin that did not really look alive, you would be rightly, where she really looks like, hey, get over here and get my iron pot. No. I'm not building a fire under it. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to eat you. Get over here. Honey, come in. Would you happen to have would you like a cigarette? I don't think it's that, but definitely hag-like, definitely not someone's grandmother. So I don't want to hear it and say, oh, that looked like my grandmother, because your grandmother's not gray. Okay, I was very specific about that. And come on, no one's grandmother looks like that. I mean, if she does and she's still alive, get her on camera, because that's weird and rare. But That's what I was looking for. But what is this hag? What is the hag? It's something that goes back through history. And I think it gets into tales of witches and witchcraft and maybe people that have preternaturally extended their life. And, as we know, researching the really dark idiots out there, the people that practice satanic ritual abuse, kind of don't look like that, do they? Like that Marina Abramovich. She's like 70 something and she has like really super clear skin. I guess from drinking the kids' blood soaked with adrenochrome. So, where does this kind of withered hag idea come from? And perhaps because I had a dream about being chased by one of these, my hypothesis is the hag is an interdimensional, lower vibrational entity, similar to like a Bigfoot or like maybe some of the aliens people encounter that aren't aliens, that are not space travelers, not explorers, just something dark trying to reach up to our higher frequency to tap in and vampire life away, right? So, in this one right here, oh boy. Yeah, there's no way you're negotiating with that at all. If she wants to eat you, if she thinks that's what's happening, and you're not strong enough to, break that gaze, and she gets you, you're screwed. But come here, I won't hurt you at all. She seems to say. Yeah, there's one. She's a winner. Look at that. Ha! She looks excited that she's about to bite into flesh. But, that's all metaphorical. I think that no human exists in this shade unless they purposefully just brushed volcanic dust all over them and just appeared gray that way. But that would be kind of frightening to run into somebody like that, withered and, but maybe preternaturally agile and sharp and way too fast for an old hag, right? That kind of thing. And here I told Midjourney to zoom out because I'm like, hey man, I said the hag of the river Styx, Stygian hag, where's the river? And I kept having to zoom out and zoom out. That's a feature you could do. And then finally it gave me some river. Almost like she came out of it. And of course, I really like the way they did the river in just dead black water. That would probably be the most foreboding in this kind of a situation with the hag. For me, if you're trying to get away from the hag, you're not going to be jumping in that black water because the black water could hide something even worse than the hag. But, this is the kind of thing that nightmares are made out of. And when, I had that, did I say dream running away from the hag? No, I meant nightmare. It 100% was a nightmare. And the only way I got away from it was, like I said, running off a cliff. And then, then you have that sense of falling, and then you see that astral body just go right into your body, and then you wake up. What the hell is that? And then why did I have a dream where I was being chased around by this hag? One of my hypotheses about that is that children have less of a buildup of, let's just call it calcification on the pineal gland, and they're just more open to other dimensions and other energies. When I was a kid, my father got into something called Eckankar, which is a kind of an interesting, like metaphysically based religion, but they're into talking about auras and whatnot. When I was a kid, I could just see auras, like, just learning about the concept and reading a little bit about it. Like 7 years old, I could see them like no problem. Still kind of a little bit, not like the way I used to though. Bright colors when I was a kid. And that's that's something when you give a young child that's like open, that kind of information. And, you know, like Kate Bush, when she was really young, she was exposed to music. And, you know, by the time she was 14, she'd pretty much completed an album. It's, you know, it's that kind of thing. So I was exposed to metaphysics at a really early age and learned to meditate at a really early age. And, you know, lost my path there for quite a while, which is fine. Everybody's got to find their path. But these are the kind of things now, having those past experiences and having the confidence that I needed to get out and just talk about this stuff, that, you know, I think is the benefit of, you know, A, having joined the Marines, A, doing the transcendental meditation every day. Or really, I don't do transcendental meditation, do I? Because that's copyrighted. I do mantra meditation, or you could just say mantra. You don't even have to say it the fancy way. Mantra meditation. Man, I'm doing mantra meditation, baby. Woo! Every day. And I like to use theta waves, pulses, which is above delta, or is it below? Delta, I believe, is where you sleep, but theta is a hypnotic type state. And if you use that in conjunction with like your goals, you visually create some goals and, you know, maybe put it on a vision board. And then as you're meditating, you don't need to look at them, but because you made the board, now you can remember what you made, and you bring those images into your theta mind. And, yeah, man, that's good stuff. Try it. So, you know, I don't know what this was chasing me around. I have to wonder, though, again, you know, was that a child's reaction to being in a dangerous situation, maybe? Or was that just, you know, an exploring, wandering little soul, and this thing was chasing me, get the hell out of here, you know, that kind of thing? Or was it chasing me because my body of light was bright, and how insects, you know, they're a lower form of life, and they'll go after lights at night, right? Which, just a sidebar on insects being a lower form of life. I ate vegan for about 2 years, and, you know, I don't regret it. I learned a lot of interesting things, but I do carnivore now, and it's much better for me. Stabilizes my brain, you know, I used to maybe get angry a lot easier. And then being filled with protein all day, you're good. You know, it sedates the animal. Maybe that was my issue. I was trying to eat fruit all the time. You know, if you feed a lion fruit all the time, you might get a pissed off lion. That's what I'm saying. I must be some kind of carnivore type of creature. Yeah. Pretty good fangs too. I've had girlfriends go, wow, yeah, like vampire fangs. No, just human. But anyway, gotta wonder if maybe those lower entities, maybe that's what they're doing. They see our light and they're attracted to it. And if you're weak, they will feed off you. And there's actually lots of reports of vampiric type of people that just waste your energy and waste your time. And that's kind of a form of vampirism, or just people that sap your energy when they're around you. You know, you tell them to piss off. And then if you notice it, just make yourself spare and don't let them defeat you, but just build your energy to a point where you're invisible. And what I mean by that is, you know, there was a time in Atlanta, I wanted to test out a pair of hiking sandals. So I walked from my apartment in Roswell 6 miles all the way to the Atlanta Hilton. And then I took the train back. And on the way, I passed through a part of town on Peachtree that maybe wasn't like the nicest part of Atlanta at the time. You know, not quite midtown, not quite downtown, like no man's land. And this dude was messing with me from across the street. And, you know, I just kind of squared off with him and, you know, was like, look into my eye. But then there were some other people that looked kind of gnarly on my side of the street, and they didn't even see me. And I remember looking down and remembering an old Stuart Wilde lesson, the metaphysical teacher Stuart Wilde, where he would say, yeah, you just kind of just think gray and just push gray. And gray's neutral, and right, and you're kind of just putting a fuzz out there, which is interesting. Is that like a mentalist trick? Maybe, I don't know. It was an interesting technique, but I thought it was very significant that there was this guy that definitely looked like trouble that didn't even look at me. So there you go. Yeah, this one I think is the most representation of what that dream was like. Whatever that thing was seemed to have like gauze wrapped around its face as it chased me. Kind of faceless, but also I could see some eyes when I looked back. And then, you know, when I ran off, eventually got to this cliff and fell off, you know, I remember looking up at it and it was looking down as I was falling. So it's a strange one. And yeah, if that is a horrific image, if you are watching, because it was a nightmare, you know, kids have nightmares. And then there was some other ones where I was out of my body as a kid, where I was playing with friends on Jupiter. Imagine that, right? So what blows my mind about that dream is, do children really, I mean, I was about 6 or 7 years old, maybe 8. Do children really have that kind of an imagination where I don't remember being particularly fascinated with Jupiter as a child, but I just remember going there with friends to play in a dream. And then on the way back, we ran back to Earth on a rainbow, which turns out to be in Norse mythology. Almost said that I did say it with a lisp. North. Norse mythology. And that would be called, what is that sucker called? The Bifrost, right? So did other people have that experience as children or as shamanistic practitioners in a Viking tribe and thus named it the Bifrost? And I have a feeling that a lot of these elements that I've experienced in some of these out-of-body type experience dreams, I have a feeling these are elements humanity as a whole's experienced, because we don't just live on a material plane Earth. We're surrounded by multidimensional frequencies. And, you know, like David Icke talks about, you know, you tune into a frequency on a radio and hear that song. It doesn't mean the other frequencies are gone. It's just you're only tuned into that. Likewise, the human brain, okay, when you're in altered states of consciousness, like deep REM sleep, and then uncalcified pineal gland being a child, right? I think you're able to tap into the broader reality in REM state, hence playing with friends on Jupiter, running back to Earth on a rainbow. Holy crap. And then also slipping off the rainbow and falling into my body. Astral form and seeing that body fall in. Hey, whoa, wow. That just happened? Yep. Wow. Okay. I'll keep my mouth shut. And yeah, that's just a good representation of that feeling. Except in this one, the kid's eyes are closed. And I very distinctly remember having my eyes open in fright because you can feel the fall. And I do have 11 jumps as an airborne Marine, and they're all static line. And I never liked the falling part. I don't know why people do the skydiving thing. Maybe it is fun. I know that, you know, to pull the chute, you have to do something opposite and put your hand up here. And there was a guy, he's a friend of mine actually, Sergeant Ray's, ended up dying because he started to spin, and that was the biggest fear. Granted, most people don't recreational skydive with, 200 pounds of gear in a bag between their legs, which he had, and that lends itself to it. That makes the situation even more dangerous. But yeah, he was spinning so fast when he pulled his reserve he wrapped up in it, and that was it. So the opening of the chute and flying around part, that's the fun part, because it's just it's like a little airplane. And ours, we had the toggle so you could steer it. But that feeling of, where are you when that happens? Are you between dimensions? When people die and they go up through the tunnel, do you get like a reverse of that feeling? Do you get like a feeling like, probably not going to feel G-forces, but you may feel motion. And I did my best to try to get this thing to represent what it's like when that spirit comes back into your body. Here I got a little guy laying down with this smoky looking spirit thing. I don't know what that would be in the background. Maybe he's got hippie parents and they gave him some incense. I don't know. I couldn't get it to represent an identical body falling in on the same person, because that's always what it's like. You see, and what is the vantage point that you're seeing that from? In the dream, you always see it from it's like a camera shot of yourself in your bed, and then this other person you see to fall, but you feel the fall. What is that? So because it's the fifth dimension, I believe, is where you are. And like we have 3 dimensions, X, Y, Z, height, width, depth, and time, meaning, okay, this kazoo is right now at this XYZ point. Okay, that matches, but time is the 4th dimension. Now, same XYZ, except time has moved it to a different XYZ. That makes sense? Time is the 4th dimension. So if you're in a 5th dimension, then perhaps time is as malleable as the XYZ coordinates in our lives, right? And you can just move things backwards and forwards in time. So maybe that's one of the effects, is being able to look at yourself while something's happening in real time. Because you could also be here looking at it happening. The metaphysical implications of the movie Interstellar cannot be just put down. Anybody that didn't get it, watch it again, read some metaphysical books, read some physics books, and check out how they intertwine. A good author for that is A.A. Attanasio. He wrote the Dragon and the Unicorn. It's like a metaphysical take on the Arthurian tales, and he's doing a new one now. But there's a whole series of those. And then his initial novel is Radix, which is a sci-fi adventure that mixes physics with metaphysics. Like people have like internal Ka energy and stuff like that, and synthetic people have weird sensor eyes that can tap in, and they can see different shades of body light because they're hunting people with high amounts of body light. It's pretty wild. Highly recommended book if you like metaphysics and sci-fi. And there again, this one kind of turned out a little bit more like a teenager with a habit. Didn't even open a window. Wow. So it's also good that, Mid-Journey still can't do it all. And it's why AI will never defeat us, because it's not creative. We are. We create solutions. It just does what it's told. I've also heard the same thing about China, and that the Chinese language, because everything is all symbols and they don't conjugate verbs or make up words the way we do. We make up words as a culture, fax, Xerox, hacky sack, boogie board. Well, generally we make up words for new things, but we also conjugate and create new weird words like I just thunk that, that was kind of a thing in the 90s. Who to thunk it? Or things like maybe, I can't even think of it now. Just pop culture type of words. We do that. Apparently in China, they don't. And it's kind of like, it's very rigid and structured. And because it's rigid and structured, it affects human beings on a synaptic level, and perhaps thus making them more susceptible to communism because, right? Because they have rigid language model, perhaps they have rigid mind structure, is the way I was told. It was explained to me. And the Americans and the Europeans, but it doesn't really make sense with Japan because Japan is super creative. So maybe because a lot of Japanese speak English and they've incorporated a lot of English into their day-to-day, like rally. They don't have a special word for rally. It's just rally, World Rally Championship. And they have this guy, Takamoto Katsuta, that's on the Toyota GR Gazoo Racing World Rally team. And he's not their best driver, but he has podium. But I'm just saying, they don't call it something special for rally. It's just rally. And so maybe being exposed to Americana and a direct feedback loop is, like Studio Ghibli, for instance, that guy, what's his name? Hayao Miyazaki, Spirited Away. Highly recommend that. And it's supposed to come out in theaters again, too, so you can see it on the big screen. Highly recommend it. So anyway, don't do drugs, kids. That's what I was trying to say with this teen here who was supposed to be astral traveling, but apparently got stoned instead. Now, here's another one that I had as a kid living in Hawaii. And this representation is a dream that I had where the first time I had a dream where you fall off and you fall into your own body kind of thing. And I was in Hawaii at the time. And this turned out really well because it's kind of exactly how it all was, except the pillows weren't like really tilted down. We were more kneeling on them. We were kneeling on them, but they weren't tilted down. There was just, and then there was a teacher ahead, and we were in a line, and that's how they were taking us home from school. And in the dream, it was over Waikiki too, because I do remember seeing Diamond Head in the background. So sometimes it does get it right. And then the way I fell was the teacher said, "Oh, we forgot so-and-so." And we all took a sharp turn or we took a sharp turn. It was like a train. So when you got to where it was turning, everybody turned. And then I fell off my pillow and fell. And from really high, I saw myself fall. And then the scene switched and I saw my astral self fall into my body in my bedroom, which is weird because my bedroom when we lived in Hawaii wasn't anywhere near Waikiki. We lived in Mililani town. So, there again, it's that fifth dimensional time, space displacement thing that you experience in dreams. But again, really interesting dream. I had another one and I tried to get Midjourney to show the bodyboarding, flying around on a bodyboarding dream that I had, and it wouldn't do it. Which is another, reason why, AI won't win. We will, but it'll be a good tool for humanity. This one here, this is an actual photo I bought from the professional photographer at Waco Surf, who, when you have a session there, he'll just take a bunch of pics and you can buy them for $10 a piece, which is cool. And this here might be connected to two things. One is my father took me body surfing when I was a child in Hawaii. And I mean, literally body surfing. I would hang on his back and he would body surf. And that's when I first got tubed. I don't know how old I was. Tiny, 4 or 5. And then the dream I had in the Marine Corps before I ever bought my own bodyboard, I always borrowed them in high school, but I hadn't bought one yet. But I did have a dream in Okinawa where I was bodyboarding over Camp Hansen in the dream. And I bodyboarded into the gym like that was there. Like I was, like the whole base I was seeing as it existed. And I flew into that gym as it existed. And there were some people talking and somebody said something about me, and, you know, Paul Newman turned around and looked at me. He was in the front row and he cocked an eyebrow at me. And I have to wonder though, did that dream and then this specific situation, where I'm looking at that board, yeah, a guy on the wave in front of me fell. And then, and this guy didn't, he's paddling out. And then I was just fully going for it. And, the board went over the falls and, luckily I missed it. And, you know, I got barreled, and that's called a barrel when it's over you like that. I'm not too deep in it, but it's pretty deep. You know, it's a thing, but I have to wonder, you know, did that dream spur on me getting into bodyboarding? I ended up being pretty good. It's nice to hear, you know, I was 55 years old at the time, to hear like a 20-something-year-old guy from San Diego go, dude, you shred. You know, that's nice. And also it kind of forces you into flexibility and strength training and cardio if you want to keep doing that, because it's not the easiest thing to do. It's not as hard as stand-up surfing. It's a lot more accessible. And that's the cool thing about bodyboarding, is you can get into it on a really amateur level and just buy one on vacation and have fun and just get pushed into by the whitewater. Or you can, you know, spend money and go to a place that makes hollow waves and, you know, and do a mechanical wave. That's a wave that was made by a machine in Texas at Waco Surf. And it's not Wave Garden. Endless Swell is the name of the technology. It's really cool. It's computer controlled air caissons that release in a way that makes the water come out. And it's a little scary too, because before it releases the wave, like the water shakes and your board shakes and you can feel the vibration in your chest. It's really intimidating. And then sitting on your board, and I got boogie fins on, you know, sometimes when the first wave gets pumped out, you can feel suction under you, and it almost pulled off one of my fins. And that's probably like the last thing you ever want to have happen. Well, one of the last things. But yeah, I have to wonder if that dream I had before, you know, and then the first board I had looked exactly like, you know, it's like I had a dream about the Maury Boogie Mach 7, because that's what I was flying around on in the dream. And they're yellow with black rails and an orange bottom. I don't remember the orange bottom, but I do remember the yellow top with the black rails. And I'm flying around on it over Okinawa. Right? So I don't really know what that's all about, other than maybe sometimes metaphysically on the etheric level, your spirit is guiding you towards something that knows will do you some good, because that does you a lot of good. I did get hurt doing it before, so I had to walk away for a bit. And when I came back, I had been doing the Matt Fury combat abs exercises, which is a trunk strengthener, specifically your low back where those hip bones are. Highly recommend. I'm going to try to get him on the show because that guy's fascinating. So another thing that I think is important to do that's going to help you in these situations where you might find yourself, maybe in that kind of situation where you're being chased by the hag in a dark plane and somewhere in your imagination, or maybe an actual physical or an actual real place that's an etheric kind of destination. And, you know, one of the things I do is I've talked about the mantra meditation, of course, but the Qigong, I was exposed to Qigong, or Tai Chi really is what it was first called when I did it, which are technically two different things, because Tai Chi is a series of Tai Chi Chuan moves, where Qigong, the way I was taught, were 7 basic Qigong moves that you can improvise in free form, and that's much more comfortable than having to remember all the different specific Tai Chi moves. Qigong, I think, is much, and it's the same effect. And even had that Rocky Radoslavich guy that I was friends with in the Marines, who was the second degree black belt of Okinawan karate, but had also been on the Romanian Olympic wrestling team, right? When I talked to him about Qigong, he goes, oh yeah, he goes, you could just invent your own and make it up. And he did this little thing that was really cool. And that's kind of how I got kind of pushed more towards the Qigong. But I did want some moves. I thought it was pretty important to learn. But also I think is what it does is it increases your, at least your awareness of your etheric field in the awakened state. But I have hypotheses that it benefits you in the dream state, or let's say the subconscious state. Kind of like, in a way, the movie Inception, where when you're asleep, how to defend yourself against thieves wanting to steal information. I think the meditation and the Qigong help you protect yourself from dark entities that would try to latch on and feed on you through terror, right? Being the lower entities, instead of benefiting off of enlightenment and lifting someone up in the day, or, you know, even I'm sure the dark entities can feed in the day too, but it would be a defense against, literally, the defense against the dark arts, defense against these dark entities whose only motivation is to feed on you and destroy life, so they can all get that. That's evil's goal, is to get back to the source, because it's angry about the breakup and God viewing itself subjectively through multiple points of observation. At least that's my hypothesis. Not sure if that's right. And that is partially based on A.A. Athanasio's description of the demons in the Dragon and the Unicorn Arthurian story arc. And he, like I said, he's working on a new one. It should be fascinating. And I was lucky enough to read like the first 10 pages of what he's working on, and it's really, really good. Okay, so there's my bit about Qigong. Maybe learn it. And if nothing else, you know, it'll get you aware of your body and increase your balance. You know, I don't really buy into all the, you know, I know Qigong and whatnot gets made fun of a lot because some of those guys try to act like they got special powers. You know, no. But does it improve your balance, and is balance good in a lot of different situations? Yeah. And even in combat, having great balance really helps. I also have noticed it really improves your reflexes, another combat great. But it's not like you're going to be a Qigong guy of 30 years and go, you're not going to be able to handle a professional fighter. Don't think that. It's going to help you. And also, I think it's connected. I think all this energy is the same energy that is also part of intuition and creativity. And I think if you do the Qigong, it's money in the bank. Qigong and transit and mantra meditation for the creative professional, like David Lynch said, is money in the bank. He didn't say that about Qigong. He said that about transcendental meditation. I'm saying it about mantra meditation, which is technically the same thing, but it's not trademarked. Therefore, you could say it and use it. And then Qigong, it's, that puppy's wide open. Have, thousands of years of Qigong out there. So if there was a copyright, it's in some village somewhere in China that's probably under sand. So much for that. Now, it's possible to really repel some of these things. And when I talk about the self-defense against the dark arts, I say it a bit tongue-in-cheek, but also I think it's important, since I am saying this to an audience, is that we share some things that happened, and, extraordinary claims need extraordinary proof. Well, I don't have any proof for this. So, my policy about this kind of thing is don't even waste your time arguing with skeptics. If they want to say, oh, well, you're probably hallucinating, all right, that's fine. I don't want to deal with a skeptic in terms of the metaphysical thing. And I really don't want to give the energy away to somebody who's questioning, even like Graham Hancock. He's really brave to want to sit there on the Rogan show and go head to head with a skeptic. And I think he did it before, or was it the John Ronson guy? Is that his name? No, Mick Ronson was David Bowie's guitarist. The guy that he's a construction guy, but his hobby is explaining what happened to Earth during the younger Dryas period and the Great Cataclysm and the Great Flood. And that guy's really good at explaining all that. And that kind of tenacity to be able to deal with somebody that's telling you you're wrong. If you've got all your facts lined up, and these guys do, and they've got all this research and they got photographs, and it's right there, they have material that they can present as evidence to support their case. Metaphysics, there's no evidence for me to present at all, other than if you've had experiences where you think something like this has happened to you, then that's valid. Granted, there are schizophrenics out there that maybe think they've had metaphysical experiences that maybe were not metaphysical. Maybe the poor thing is just extremely sick. Case in point, years ago I was driving a cab, and a guy says, come here. There's a cat under here. You got to help me get this cat out. And I'm like, oh God, a cat. Got to help the guy. I love pets. And when I got to where the guy was, he was about 14, 15 feet away. At first I thought I was being set up to be robbed. And then I realized, oh, he's crazy, because he was trying to push a mailbox over and pointing at the concrete saying there's a cat under it. And I just thought real quick, once I realized the guy was schizophrenic and crazy, I was like, I'll go get help. And I just took off. But, that is schizophrenia. And you need to probably know that if you encounter somebody, there's a big difference. Granted, I've also heard from Cliff High that functioning creative professionals are, in fact, high-functioning schizophrenics, meaning we do see things, but we know it's a thing that is in our mind, and we're able to create it and control it, and that's part of the creative flow, okay? Whereas schizophrenic doesn't have that barrier. So when something pops in their head, it's not like, oh, good idea. It's like, right? Reality is in my face. So, but the idea with this image is that there have been a couple times where I felt a dark entity near me with ill intent, wanting to do me harm. and you can feel it. And you, maybe that's the, or woken up. I've woken up not being able to breathe. That's called the night terrors. And you can't move. And I was with the presence of something near me. Okay. And I know they've explained it back and forth on all those really ridiculous shows that are almost impossible to watch because it's when we come back. And then they show you 5 minutes of what you just saw and then like maybe a minute and a half of new stuff, right? That kind of thing. I don't understand that other than being lazy and not getting enough content just to have a regular show. And those people explained over and over, oh yeah, well, that's a phenomenon everyone gets, that when you have sleep paralysis, that there's like a dark entity there. Okay, well, wait a minute. How about that everybody has had that experience, actually experience a dark entity, not the other way around? All right? Not that the mind creates it. What if it's there and then in certain circumstances, you're immobilized because it's trying to feed on you and create fear, and that's their favorite thing. It's a really low form of vampirism, right? And is what I did was once I realized I was in that situation and couldn't move, is how I made myself be able to move, is I concentrated on my chi force or your chi center. And by the way, your chi center, like here's your belly button, and then your chi center is about 4 fingers, maybe 2 fingers down, right there. Can you see that? Right there. And that's, when you move around and stuff too, that is kind of like your center anyway, right? That's like your center of gravity when you're standing up. When you're on all fours, your center of gravity is different, which was taught to me by a wrestler guy. But that has got to do with metaphysics. But ironically, your chi center is also your center of gravity when you're standing up. Okay. But as what I did is I focused on my chi center when I had this dark entity, essentially accost me metaphysically, whatever was going on, try to feed on me, right? And I just focused on that like there was light there, and at first it was small, and then I made it bigger, and I was able to move and breathe a little bit, and then I was just like, I just kind of exploded the light. And after I did that, those things never came back. So that's why I called this podcast Self-Defense Against the Dark Arts, is because if you do have the night terrors, and you're worried about that, or maybe even, I don't know if it works on the whole abduction thing, and I'm not sure if night terrors are connected to abductions. Maybe it kind of seems like on a metaphysical level, some of these abductions are organized feeding on an individual, and then being able to repel them with that light. I think basically I put the message out, oh yeah, don't mess with this one, right? And I think there's a lot of people like that on planet Earth. You probably didn't want to mess with David Icke. Different people with really high little energy levels, I think, are able to. And I'm not. I'm a student. Let's put it that way. I'm an initiate. I'm not a master at all. But it's interesting to delve into these different practices and see different people use these techniques to repel. And it's also interesting how people that are stuck in materialist reductionism don't even get it and dissuade it and go, oh yeah, that energy exists, but it's not powerful enough to do anything with. Well, contraire, mon frere, I believe not only is it the same energy that feeds creativity and intuition, and that you can also repel dark energy with, I also feel it's connected to manifesting goals, right? Because you're reaching out through that 5-space reality, and you're being thankful for your goal now. So you're bypassing the time constraint, and it makes it manifest faster. It's the way it was explained to me. And it's pretty interesting. And does everybody have to deal with something dark when they go to bed? Now I've seen alcoholics have fitful sleep, like almost like they're under attack. Maybe that it's just something that happens to everybody. And the difference between an addict and somebody that decides, well, I'm going to initiate myself in these metaphysical practices and, not be like everybody else. Let's see what this crowd's doing. How are they doing it? Right. And, oh, okay. Well, drinking calcifies your pineal gland, and really heavy drugs puts holes in your aura. So, maybe don't do those, and maybe, protect yourself by having a bright, vibrant energy potential. And, and people will see that too. And I had somebody tell me once at Chastain Park in Atlanta, which is like really gone downhill in terms of being a nice place to live. But in the early 2000s, it was fantastic. And someone's dog came up to me, and I was visiting it with it, and they're like, wow, he doesn't like anybody. You must have good energy. So what I mean, and also animals respond to that too. So I think it's important, especially with as dangerous as the world is getting, to develop that intuition through meditation, qigong, diet, cutting out those poisons like the corn syrup solids and the seed oils. Not as difficult to do as you would think. I've been doing it since January 2nd, and I did realize recently I'm eating too many nuts. And so I'm just totally going full carnivore, and I've got a bag and a half of tamari almonds in my cupboard that I'm going to finish. And after that, I'm not buying any more nuts. And yes, I still do say the word nuts like I have a Tourette syndrome issue with it. And it's also funny if you're ever sitting around and everyone's normal and you can say, hey, yeah, could you hand me that bowl of mixed nuts? And just to get people to, and then you can just apologize and say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I have Tourette syndrome with that word. And you can just make it up and they'll excuse you. I self-identify as someone with Tourette syndrome with only the word nuts. So maybe that'll work for you. And if that made you laugh, hey, that always helps. A little bit of humor goes a long way in self-defense against the dark arts. And then another thing, I think, when I spoke about turbo thought, that, that's also a tool, because that's etheric energy that you're concentrating on. And the turbo thought is where you get into a meditative state and you're bringing that energy up your spine, wrapping it around a goal, like maybe something you put on a vision board, and then firing it out into the world. Well, if you ever find yourself in a situation where, you think maybe there's a dark entity coming after you, you could try shooting a little photon torpedo at it, your own body light in a little ball, just concentrated, blah. And, or just the big explosion from your chi center, like a grenade, and, watch them run, because they are cowards. The dark entities are not more powerful than your light. It's all about frequency. They are lower frequency. So if you allow yourself to have a lower frequency, you're opening yourself up to that. And again, Stuart Wilde would get himself into a meditative state with his eyes open, and he reported seeing these scorpion tail snake-like things all coiled around like these bums, tramps, and alcoholic type people. So you think about that, how, when you tune into different frequencies, okay, if you're able to get in touch with your inner energy and not allow it to be broken down through those kind of things, then essentially you are an instructor for defense against the dark arts. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Once again, this is the Minx Labrada Mysterious World podcast. I am Tony Castelluccia, the creator of the Minx Labrada Mysterious World podcast. Minx Labrada is a sketch comedy character that I've got scripts on and I'm working on a cartoon about, but also may end up on some sketches right here on this channel, just so y'all can see exactly what I'm talking about when I say that character. So thank you very much for your time. That is the end of the podcast, the Minx Labrada Mysterious World podcast. And that's a better explanation of what I'm doing with this and where I'm going. And I hope you enjoyed self-defense against the dark arts. I hope it's useful for you. Once again, thanks for your time. And don't forget, it's another great day in America.